jeepney? Inside the giant jeepney. I'm seated here right now. It's uncomfortable, but I can tell you, I can sit here forever because it smells so good. Parang yung pag nagluluto ng sinangag, yung nanay nyo, ganun po ang amoy. Nakakagutom. I can eat everything, and we're gonna do that today. I'm hoping at least on the show. Pero bago ang lahat, ito muna ang ating immigration update from American Dream.
This American Dream segment is brought to you by Aquino & Lowe Law Firm, answering your immigration questions.
Allison, thank you so much for joining us on the show here. Must be very important topics because you're here physically in the studio. But let's talk about that. Dream Act, what happened?
Unfortunately, there was so much hope for finally passage of the DREAM Act. It had been or was supposed to be included as a part of the Department of Defense bill. Unfortunately, the Department of Defense bill did not pass the Senate. And so that's the bad news. The good news, however, is that the senators have vowed to hopefully try to enact just the DREAM Act itself, not as a part of a bill, but an act in and of itself.
And what do you think is going to happen to that? Because I see, I follow some blogs of like Republican supporters and Republican officials, and they don't want that.
They have never wanted it. However, thankfully, the majority of the Senate are Democrats. Individuals need to go out there and vote, or need to go out there and contact their legislators, because there is still a lot of hope of it passing, of it being enacted. It just takes a lot of support in order to do it.
All right, we're going to keep our fingers crossed about that. Meanwhile, not too long ago, Florida couple pled guilty to forced labor conspiracy of 39 Filipino guest workers, and we always talk about that on the show. It's such a turnoff, you know, Kababayans taking advantage of fellow Kababayans. What is the story about?
Yes, it's terrible. The incident recently was a couple who owned a staffing agency in Florida, and the agency was filing H-2B visas for individuals to come and work in the United States. Unfortunately, and these individuals would go to the Philippines, enter into contracts with, obviously, people who very much desire to want to come to the United States, and they signed contracts for exorbitant amount of fees.
Right.
And so when these individuals enter the United States, the owners of the staffing agency would take their passports. They would put them into homes where they were just many individuals inside these homes, substandard living conditions.
Okay.
They were forced to work often for little or no pay. And essentially what they have pled guilty to is trafficking, human trafficking. It's
so
modern-day slavery.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, and then that is why we want to emphasize that on the show all the time. We have our rights, because some people, we in a way enable them to take advantage of us when we don't speak up, correct?
Exactly.
And some people, Allison, I think once and for all, let's clarify this again. Iniisip kasi ng mga iba galing sa Philippines, oh, I don't have papers, I don't have my passport, and sometimes I don't even know how to speak English properly, or I can't communicate myself in English. So, you know, I don't have the right to complain or to report any anomalies. What would you say to that?
It's absolutely the wrong way of thinking. Just because Filipinos come to the United States with these big hopes and with these big dreams, that does not in any way mean that people can take advantage of you. Individuals have certain rights, the rights to human dignity, to live and work in humane standards. And unfortunately, when individuals and fellow Filipinos take advantage and essentially fall prey, individuals fall prey to wanting to fulfill their hopes and dreams.
Right.
And they don't need to do that. There are rights available to them. They can make reports in order to ensure that they are not modern-day slaves.
And in fact, it's even better sometimes because it fast tracks your immigration status, correct, Allison?
In certain situations, I'm not talking about simple wage and labor violations. I mean, there are certain differences between human trafficking and individuals who are just not getting paid sufficient amount.
Pero what usually happens, pag halimbawa in terms of immigration, you know, if you're trafficked here and then you report, and then what happens in the meantime? Are you in status? Can you get a job? Will you get deported?
Depending on the situation, you may qualify for a certain type of visa called a U visa. And the U visa is essentially available to individuals who are victims of human trafficking. There are some other visas, but the most applicable is probably the U visa. If an individual applies for that, you can obtain a work permit. You are or you would anyways, become legal in the United States and ultimately obtain permanent residency.
Okay.
And so that's why people need to understand you do not need to just be taken advantage of. You certainly can assert your rights and fulfill that dream of being here in the United States and not as a slave.
And Attorney Allison Aquino and her partner, Attorney Richard Lowe, are there for Aquino and Lowe Law Office to help us. If someone's watching and they find themselves in that situation, they can call the law office too, right?
Absolutely. We'd be glad to consult with you.
All right. And consultation is free. Face-to-face consultation is free. And you have to call that number on the screen if you want to schedule your appointment now. Thank you so much, and more power to you, Allison.
Thank you, Janelle.
Have you ever tried Pinoy sushi? Well, I haven't, although I know what's in it. Tocino, or tapa, achara, kanin, seaweed paper. We're going to get to try that and more when we return. Don't go away.